Would you believe that schools today are letting, even encouraging kids in class to identify as dogs and cats? And instead of interacting with their classmates and teachers through language, they let them bark, meow, and hiss.
I'm a little shocked, I guess is what I would put it.
Yeah, that's Nebraska State Senator Bruce Bostelman scolding the school officials in his state for doing things that are hard to believe.
Dress up as animals, cats or dogs, during the school day. They meow and they bark. And now schools are wanting to put litter boxes in the schools for these children to use. How is this sanitary?
Now, that could be addressed to a certain extent by the use of liners and baking soda and 2 to 3 inches of litter, but that's not the point.
One person here recently said that a student identified as a cat and wanted a litter box, and the school didn't provide the litter box, so the student went ahead and defecated on the floor. Really? Really?
Now, at first glance, this may look like a cat, but look more closely at the proportions here. Would you believe this is actually a high school student in an intricate cat costume who in fact uses a litter box? What kind of monsters would do this to our kids?
It's okay if they wear a cat costume? And that's fine, and you have a litter box for them, and that's fine?
No, it's nonsense, and it is in fact far too absurd to really be happening. And of course it's not. And yet the state senator bought into it. And so have panicked parents across the nation, where school administrators from Iowa to Nebraska have had to explain to parents and lawmakers that students are not using litter boxes and are not barking their way through school. And while this may sound like a real-life idiocracy, and you may want to react to this like the viral green shirt guy of 2019, what might have been funny 3 years ago is now yet another sobering example of how social media has split our society, split it into warring factions, and distorted realities, and stoked fear and distrust of others to the point that it's pulled us all into the Twilight Zone.
We're gonna eat each other up alive.
This was a famous episode of the Twilight Zone called The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
You're all desperate to point some kind of a finger at a neighbor.
Rod Serling showed us this world in which people feared their neighbors and transformed into monsters.
And stop telling me who's dangerous and who isn't, and who's safe and who's a menace.
To the point that the fear and suspicion and panic transformed them.
It's the monster! It's the monster!
And now we seem to be living in that same dimension of the Twilight Zone.
And so today, it's not enough to say the other side is wrong and here's why. It's almost an immediate step towards demonizing the other side. They're not just wrong on this issue, they're evil, they're horrible.
The immoral, disgusting, evil left is attacking our children. They are child predators.
We live in this world in which social media plays up whatever stokes passion and anger and plays down the rest. And combined with hyper-partisan media, it's separated and isolated people into these factions in which they're only exposed to like-minded people who take cues from one another. And as research from Yale Law professor Dan Kahan shows, people are wired to disregard evidence and facts that contradict the political positions of their social group. In other words, people will take unfounded positions and disregard evidence that refutes those positions if they think taking and advancing the positions will embrace them and maintain their popularity within their circles. And when the circle or faction thinks it's at war with another circle or faction which is not just wrong but evil, well, as Bob Dylan wrote, the pellets of poison are flooding the waters and a hard rain is going to fall. It's how the monsters are due on Maple Street. It's how panicked parents can believe teachers are transitioning their kids into house pets. And unfortunately, it's how a movie like Idiocracy can transition from a satire into a documentary.